India's mainstay is spirituality. In our Vedic times, when the child would go to the Gurukul with his mind's milk,
Relevance of Bhagavad Gita and Lord Krishna.
whatever is manifested in the physical plane has a blueprint in the causal plane.
Thank you for giving us this opportunity. We are a Golgappe channel based in USA, but we cater to the diaspora, larger Indian people. And आपके माध्यम से we'll have English and Hindi mix. आपके माध्यम से हम लोग जो the very purpose of Mahakumbh, we like to understand क्या है. What we have read is a lot of people come to seek ज्ञान. It's not only event, but there is a ज्ञान and interaction. So in your word, what is Mahakumbh, and then I'll take it further on this question.
See, the main India's mainstay is spirituality. From time immemorial, India is a land where we have been having seekers for truth, the verity of life. So, from time immemorial, Prayagraj has been a place of congregation for spiritual seekers, and saints and sages who are doing their tapas or sadhana in remote, far-off areas come down to this place to bless the crowd, the people who are encumbered with their worldly ties, to give them hope that they too can seek God and attain God realization in this life. So they make the goal approachable, realistic to them by their living examples, and also to get blessings from the saints.
Sure.
Also, the seers have known that delusion, Maya, is so strong that that goal, divine goal, can be lost very easily in the worldliness. So they have interspersed the year with occasions where we reflect on the purpose of human life and refocus our alignment towards the divine goal, the objective of human birth. So that is in general the perspective, but from our perspective, the bathing at the confluence of Ganga, Yamuna and the Saraswati, which is mythical or lost, is actually esoteric in the sense that it symbolizes the internal confluence of Ida, Pingla and Sushumna at the Kuthastha, at the third eye.
Right.
And bathing the consciousness there, the Hindi it said, Man Maila aur Tan ko dhoye. So we have to purify ourselves more from the mind than from the body. The union is of the mind and soul, so mind has to be purified, and when the consciousness reaches that confluence where these three confluence, that is the real baptism, that is the real cleansing of one's karma, of past karma and of many incarnations, and then the soul is pure and realizes itself as being the divine child of God.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. So the way I'll have my question is few from the Vedic way and some from Puranic. So for spiritual people, Puranic is for the common people to understand. It's said that in this Mahakumbh, a lot of devatas will be coming, right? Indradev and all the devatas. Devatas are having a different dimension, right? We humans can't easily find them. They may not come in a human form. They can be. So कैसे हम अपने देवताओं को पहचानेंगे जो कुंभ में आते हैं and get their blessings for my audience?
See, it is said that even God requires some medium to express himself. Even he needs hands and feet through which he can work. So a soul or a being who is wanting to serve, wanting to express goodness, he becomes a channel. and through him the divine personages work and become make them their instruments to express themselves on this human plane, on the physical plane. So though the divine beings which we refer to as devtas, though may not be visible to our naked eye, but they are manifesting through the instruments on the human plane.
Okay.
There are so many good work being carried on, like charitable activities, spiritual activities, and from there we can know that they are inspired. They have been motivated to do that kind of act. So they are basically channels. Nimit mat kehte hain. They are mediums of divine being expressed through their channel.
Nice. So in the era of artificial intelligence, where our younger generation, they are facing two types of, I won't say onslaught, but two types of challenges they have, or opportunity or options to select. One is an extreme form of wokeism, which the left, ultra left countries they bring, ideas bring, and any idea is good or bad. We won't take a side, but I'm just saying a lot of Indian diaspora people face with this wokeism taught in the school, colleges, and supported by the government of the day. And another side is the high-end side of the technology, where when we talk about Atma, Paramatma, Soul, Param Brahma, there is an artificial intelligence where they say that the machine can do everything. Machine can be tuned in next 20, 30, 50 years to become a singularity, where the whole concept of your home is here, is what we hear. Two different, and interacting with a lot of college kids from Ivy colleges and any other colleges in America. इनको क्या मैसेज देंगे है सनातन, कैसे इनको इनके इस दुविधा को, द क्यूरियोसिटी को, हाउ सनातन विल एड्रेस? So this will be my question.
See, anything that comes has its pros and cons. It is a double-edged sword. It can be utilized, it can be misutilized. So it depends on upon how we utilize that to our gains or to our demerits. So with AI also that goes true for that also, it holds true. So I think basically the error lies with our education system. Today's education is more on how to earn in life, not how to live life. So in the first half of our life, we are losing our health to gain wealth. Second half, we are losing our wealth to gain health. So from health we can get wealth, but from wealth we cannot get back health. So we have a very limited time frame. So there's a way to live life, which is called the art of living. There's certain rules that apply in life, which have been enunciated by saints who have attuned with God, which is what the Sanatanism propounds, which are certain art of living, which are certain do's and don'ts. And the main one is to live in the world but be not of it. Now, having said this, God has given us a free will. He's not going to force us that we live this way. We use our destination to live this way, and we'll have a happy and a peaceful life. If we don't, then we are sooner or later going to land up in a lot of troubles, because we are imposing our will and this show is being run by someone else. It's like supposing a murderer goes to the court and says, "My Lord, please forgive me. I did not know by committing this. I'll be sentenced for life or given capital punishment. I will not do this again." The judge will not spare him. What I'm wanting to say is, ignorance of law is no excuse. You better know the law. What are the laws of living? So it is said, the art of living, Guru says, mind is like milk and the world is like water. If you mix the two, they become one. Then you cannot separate milk from water. But if you take milk, add a little bit of curd in it and keep it for some time, this entire milk will become curd. This you churn, you get butter. This you put in water, doesn't mix, it floats. So this is what happened in our Vedic times. When the child would go to the Gurukul with his mind's milk, the Guru would add a few instructions in his mind in the form of curd and ask him to meditate over it. When the mind would become curd, then would start his churning discipline training. When the mind would turn to butter, then the Guru would say, "Yes, now you're ready for householder's life." So he comes into the world's water with his mind's butter. He wouldn't mix. He does everything as any householder would do, but with the difference that this wife, children given to me, do not belong to me. They belong to God. God dwells in them. So whatever he does kind of becomes a worship. The house becomes a heaven. So he has a very fine distinction between what is need and what is desire. So he fulfills the needs of the children, does not spoil them by fulfilling their desires. After he's got them educated and married, his job responsibility towards home is over. Now he comes into a Varprastha zone, which is a buffer between Grahastha and Sannyas, where he dedicates himself to Supreme Lord. And he severs his time which he might have developed despite being a bhatta. After he's done this, now he comes to the sannyas life, where he dedicates himself entirely to Supreme Lord because the last phase of his life. He has to move. So these were four categories of a human life in the Vedic times, where each had a definite role and purpose. Today, the first and the foremost God, where we get formal training of how to live life is missing. So we come into the world water with our minds learned, the two become one. Then what we have is hypertension, blood pressure, suicide, divorce and murder and what
A lot of problem today world facing. Yeah.
So because first the Mughals came, then the British came, and they eradicated our education system. And in the British Parliament, Lord Macaulay said, if we want to rule over India, we have to make them feel inferior so that they adopt our modern ways. They feel that our modern ways and theirs are inferior. And so they, in that way, achieved success by making us their servants. So we are still in that mindset. We are born in India, but we are living in Greenwich Mean Time. So unless we know the purpose of human life, why we are born, and we live by the rules that apply here, we are sooner or later going to suffer because of going in the wrong direction. We have a mind which is misleading, misguiding, and getting us more and more enmeshed and lost in this transitory world of suffering and nothing else. So we have to have a very fine discrimination, and unless we are living a non-attached life, we have very little intuition to guide our life with discrimination.
And you raised a very pertinent point. I'll just, how much do we have? 5 minutes more?
Yeah.
Time, okay. So you mentioned about the Macaulay, and India is so much blessed that even the one of the thinker which Western intellectuals and politicians quote, George Orwell.
Mm-hmm.
George Orwell was born in a very poor state of Bihar, Betia.
Okay.
And they keep on quoting Orwell theory, and not all animals are same. So I will take that question, and in the era when the race is so much divided the humanity, religion, I'm not saying dharma, the religion part, right? You mentioned about the do's and don'ts. Now there are a lot of religion which has very strict do's and don'ts, whereas Sanatan is slightly in the seeker mode, where it's like a river is meandering and it can take whatever path it wants naturally, right? That's what it is. There's no do's and don'ts because we have so many sampradayas, each having, even in Akhada we can see huge difference the way we treat the same Param Brahma, right? So our youth get confused, especially when they compare that, because there's always a human mind, there's a comparison going on. What is Sanatan? What is it trying to do? You say it's a righteous way, it's a dharma. Those things are academic value, but in day-to-day life, when the global warming is happening, racism is happening, so much hatred against each other, humans are happening. How we can step in as a Sanatan, and what we can tell our students, because in identity crisis situation, especially the Indian American kids, with the color of their skin, however good they are, they're still a brown guy, even if they will be fairer than a Caucasian. Like the Kashmiri kids, they have almost blue-eyed with some tribes, but they still are brown because it's the race. So all these challenges our kids have, and I go for a motivational speech and meet them, and they have so many questions on all these things. तो आप कैसे इसको उनको क्या बताएंगे, like ताकि we can bring them to our value system?
See, Guruji says that you can take the horse to the water, but you cannot force it to drink. So the curiosity cannot be awakened in anyone. It has to come from within. So Guruji says this world is not perfect. If it were perfect, nobody would seek God. So when we go about this world, as I also say, that it is not guaranteed that the world will go the way I want it to. Most certainly it will not go the way I want it to. So we go through a lot of experiences in life. They can be broadly categorized into two. One will be favorable, one will be unfavorable. It is when we get the unfavorable situations in life, that is when we start reflecting or sometimes wanting to know what is the purpose of life. That is when we are drawn to a teaching. Now, it is said, Jato mat tato pat, as many minds, as many paths. So you have Delhi. You can approach it from millions of sides, from all sides. But there are four broad highways which are Bhakti, Gyan, Karma and Raj Yoga. It's like trying to climb the Mount Everest. You have the north face, the south face, east and the west. You have to decide which one you would want to approach the Everest from. And once you've decided, then you stick with it. You, with your mentality and your nature, are drawn by a certain teaching. God draws you to that particular teacher or a guru, and then you further take that journey onwards. So nothing is happening by chance in this creation. Everything, when we see Lord Krishna in the chariot sitting with the 5 horses, Arjun standing behind, that is deeply symbolical in the sense that the 5 horses somehow signify the senses, but this also signifies life. Life moves, the chariot moves.
True.
Now this chariot of life is not in your and my hand, it is in the Lord's hand. So what situations will come into our life, what people will come to our life is not in your and my hand, it is in the Lord's hand. Arjun symbolizes us. So how we face that situation, how we counter it is much upon us. So it's like you have a white wall with a lot of black spots in it. Now you won't like those black spots on the wall. You would want that entire wall to be white. So here the white wall is our soul. The black spots are the tendencies, dark tendencies we've accumulated over incarnations. That we have to remove. So as the earthly mother sent us to school, not in class 10 straight away, from class 1 to 2 and so on. So similarly, God also knows which is the smallest black spot in this individual, and first to remove that. Then as we overcome that by, say, a negative of anger, we overcome by the arrow of calmness. Once we overcome that, then we have more confidence that we can take the next challenge. So then the chariot is led to the next. So some person will come into our life which will bring out a certain negative tendency out of us, say anger or sensitivity or touchiness. Then we know that, oh my goodness, I have this negative thing inside of me. Then I have to counter it with a positive arrow and to kill it. So this is very individualistic. First we have to go through the knocks of life. And when we go through knocks of life, then we are propelled to inquire the purpose of life. This does not happen in general. Those who are very evolved come out of that crowd to seek the purpose of life. So in general, they will go about life through suffering and learning. So there are 3 ways to learn wisdom in this life. One is through our own experiences. This is the longest and the hardest way to wisdom, and most certainly not possible in one lifetime. The second is to learn through others' mistakes. Someone has done some mistake and is suffering. I should avoid that suffering by not doing that mistake. This is the shorter path. And the third is through Guru's wisdom. That is the shortest way to wisdom, because it's like supposing if I were to tell you make a laptop, you may spend in a lifetime not being able to make it. But if you take a book which has 2 parts to it, one is components and assembling it, and you purchase the components and do it yourself, you'll be able to do it in a lesser time. So this is Guru's wisdom. So first one goes into the sun and gets tossed with the sun, then he wants to go under the fan and seek an AC. So that part of the world of suffering one has to go through. That is part of learning. And then it propels him to seek the purpose of life. And then comes the Guru in his life, then guides him further on the journey. So this is how Divine has ordained things. Nothing is happening by chance, it is all Divine Providence. Nothing is a coincidence. Every human life is being guided by the Divine.
Okay. So good point. Guru is important in our life. And coming to that, so the relevance of Bhagavad Gita and Lord Krishna. Now, I said I will have some Puranic question. So as per the Puranas, Lord Krishna left and then the Kali Yuga started, and now the Vishnu avatar or Krishna or however we see Krishna as the main god is vice versa. Krishna is no more going to come. It's a Kalki Bhagwan who is going to come, who may be a Vishnu avatar or who is a Vishnu avatar. And we also learn from Mahabharata and a lot of discussion which Lord Krishna had with the Bhishma, Karna or Arjuna, saying that every yuga has its own dharma and principle. So what was right during Treta Yuga for Sri Ram to do, or Satya Yuga for say Vishnu or Shiva to do, things change in Dwapar. Now with the Kali Yuga, if the entire principle of dharma will again change with Kalki Bhagwan coming and abolishing everybody, what is the relevance of Bhagavad Gita, which is written with the theory and principle of Dwapar Yuga?
See, thing is, the core of the dharma will always remain the same. The external kernel may keep changing, but the core of do's and don'ts, yam, niyam will always remain the same. It is eternal. That is why it is called Sanatan. Sanatan means eternal. Now, talking about an avatar, when he comes, he has a dual role. One is qualitative and one is quantitative. Qualitative is that he chooses a handful of his disciples to further take them Godwards. Quantitative in the sense he gives a teaching for the general masses because he cannot transform everyone. Guru says, unless you have a blackboard, you can't see the white chalk. So for this creation to exist, duality had to exist. Good and bad, day and night, dark and bright. So that duality had to be. So the good and bad will always exist. Sura, Devta, Rakshas have always been there. The proportion may change very from Yuga and clan. Now, God's laws also change as per the yugas. In Kali Yuga, his rules are a little relaxed. In Satyuga, his rules are very strict. In Kali Yuga, even if I were to do some good act, I will be rewarded. And unless I do some negative act or evil act, I will not be punished, even if I think so. But in Satyuga, it's opposite. Unless I do a good act, I will not be rewarded. And even if I think negative, I'll be punished. So that's how the external yugas revolve and dharmas keep changing according to the situation. But the inner core principle of Sanatan is eternal. That cannot change, of do's and don'ts. And there will be certain seekers of God at all yugas. So for them, this Yam, Niyam, Asan, Pranayam, the Patanjali Yoga Sutras and Krishna's philosophy of Gita is eternal. To explain what Gita talks about, what he has told Arjun is a battle in the mind. I will have to explain it in different way. Supposing I were to take this glass, supposing this salt shaker, it has a certain weight. I am holding it with a certain force and making it go around, so it's going around. If I withdraw the hand, it will not go around in the air by itself, it will fall. Now Earth is doing quite a similar motion. We don't see the hand, but there is certain force which is making it go around. Now that force is such perfection, at millenniums it's going around, it's neither a second more, neither a second less. Neither a millimeter more, neither a millimeter less. Then further to this, there are two further forces working on this. One is called the centripetal force, one is called the centrifugal force. This also is kept in the balance. If this was stronger, the earth would merge with the sun. If this was stronger, it will fly away. Now supposing I replace these two as sun being God and earth being a human being, the centripetal force is God love which is drawing us to him. And centrifugal force, satanic force which is drawing us away from him. Now these two forces exist inside our cranium. One is called Man and one is called Buddhi. The Man has the 100 evil forces symbolized by Kauravas of lust, greed, anger, avarice, restlessness, sadness, sorrow, jealousy, hatred. A permutation, combination of this goes into millions. Now this is our worst enemy inside of us. Because these people go into depression, because these people land in the mental asylum, and because these people commit suicide. So it is actually my enemy, but poses as my friend. So it convinces me to the point where it will make me confirm that suicide is my only option. And it will convince me in such a way that it will feel as if a friend is telling me that this is your only way. Buddhi is my friend. This wants me to take me to calmness, peace, and tranquility. The situation should be that this is the servant, this is master. Situation should be that master on top, servant down below. Current situation quite reverse. The servant becomes the master becomes the servant. And in this situation, Lord Krishna says, give me 5 villages, we will not have a war. Also this says, I am not going to give you a needle bit of land. Now turning this table around is the Mahabharata inside each head. So this is a universal battle going on in everyone's mind. Someone who's aware is trying to turn this table around. And someone who doesn't know is getting rogered not only for this life but for lifetimes to come. Now the only way to turn this table around is not to do what this mind tells me to do, and to do the very thing this mind does not tell me. This is the only way to master this erring mind, and to have a very fair bit of discrimination that where he is telling me to do something wrong. That discrimination comes from meditation. The mind calms down. Guru says if you take a glass full of muddy water and you keep it for some time, the mud will settle. Then you have water which is clear. So here the water is our mind. The dust in it are the restless thoughts. So when we sit in meditation and calm the mind, settle it, sixth faculty is manifested, which is called intuition, which manifests in calmness of the mind. That is my unerring guide in taking the decision between the two paths of this or that. So that's where the teachings of Krishna comes into Bhagavad Gita, where he has given a way out of this mind which is constantly deluding him. And it is adept in psychological warfare. The Kauravas are very adept in psychological warfare. I may relate a story which may help us understand how this mind operates. Guru talks about a case where this man is an alcoholic, and after some inspiration, he decides to give up his drinking. So he collects all the bottles and puts them in a cellar, locks the door, gives the key to his servant, and says, even if I were to ask for it, don't give me. So he ensures that, in case I get tempted, I don't have the key and the bottles are locked. So now this inspiration stays for some time, but it doesn't last very long. So as it slowly abates, this Satan takes a back seat. When it's at its lowest ebb, then pounces back. So after 15 days, 20 days, or a month or so, after the inspiration is gone, it pounces back. So in the first instance, it is not going to tell you where it's going to lead you to. But slowly, it will take you from the focus. So the first thing it says is, so it's my enemy, but closer is my friend. So it says, supposing you have a guest, like we have guests, we have offered them tea or coffee, they offer them drink. So it says, supposing you have a guest, and you have to offer them a drink, and the servant is away. How will you give? You have given the key to the servant. The key should not be with him, you should keep the key with yourself. In case the servant is there, you can give him the key, he'll get it. In case he's not there, then you can get it. Not that nothing's wrong with this. It seems that he's saving me from an odd situation. So he calls the servant and says, give me the key back. The servant cannot say, sir, you had asked me not to. He gives the key back. Now a little away from the focus. Then after another month or so, next attack. Now supposing you have a guest and you have to offer him a drink and the servant is away. So you'll have to give it. So you make the guest sit in the drawing room and excuse yourself. Go to the bedroom, collect the key, go to the cellar, open the lock, go inside, select a bottle, come out, lock the door, go to the kitchen, pour the drink, add some soda, some ice cubes, get some snacks, and then bring to the drawing room. All this will take at least 15-20 minutes.
Correct.
Is it right to make a guest sit in the drawing room alone for 20 minutes? Bad manners. You should have it there and then,
Right.
The drink should be available right there. In case the servant is there, he can offer it. In case not, then you can give it. This also seems perfectly plausible. Nothing wrong about this. Seems again he is saving 20 minutes of my precious time. And I will not have to make a guest wait in the drawing room alone. So he collects all the bottles, puts them in his drawing room. Thus far it was out of sight, out of mind. Now it's right there before the eyes. Again another month passes, final nail in the coffin. It's been 3 months, you haven't had a drink. You have risen above this. And even if you were to have a peg of it, it doesn't matter to you, And then, so where does an alcoholic stop at a peg? He's back to square one. So after 3 months, he's back to where he was when he was 3 months ago. So this is how it constantly keeps deluding me into and enmeshing me into the world of delusion and suffering. And we don't know its whys. Very few have the discrimination, and most of us get caught by its delusionary ways and knack of deluding us.
Agreed. Okay, one last question. So, lot of our Sanatan knowledge is based on cosmology and the correlation of the event, and Puranas basically takes the shape of, as you said, duality part, right? The Dvait philosophy, not the Advait Nirgun philosophy. Now, to that, a question is the recent ISRO Shakti point, Shiv Shakti point on the moon, and our rocket launching, satellite launching, landing on the moon. A lot of scholars and monks, they are very angry. I know a few of them. I had talked. They said that how can you land on the moon without Chandradev permission? And these type of so they may have a philosophical reasoning for it, but it came so point blank absurd for a lot of I'm saying from the kids in America and all. They said that this is your Sanatan. He doesn't even understand science. Why would so? Again, guru is needed and all those things as part. But for the from Yogi Ji's perspective, how do you see this question, right? Do we need Chandradev permission to land on the moon, or are we faking it, or what is this landing like? How should our younger generation see this? Should we be celebrating it, our scientific achievement? Like that was my question.
See, whatever is manifested in the physical plane has a blueprint in the causal plane. Unless Guruji says nothing is an invention, everything is a discovery.
Discovery, true.
The Eureka moment is not that suddenly the scientist was able to break through something. True. It was revealed in his mind. So it has come from a causal plane into his mind.
Accepted.
So any success that we have on the physical plane has support from the divine itself. Nothing can happen without his consent. It is said, no scene comes into a movie without the director's permission. So anything happening, we've had failures also.
Yes.
Before we tried it, it didn't succeed. So sometimes failures help us improve upon ourselves, and to achieve success, the road to perfection is through imperfection. So that's a learning process, and that's how they covered up on their flaws and finally able to achieve success. So we should be appreciative of the scientists involved in this project and to where we reached. So that is really commendable, I would feel. And in India we have prayers offered on Vishkarma, where every instrument here, everything is seen as divine. A tree or insect or everything is a manifestation of God. You have water vapor, you condense it becomes water, you condense it becomes ice. So water vapor is God without form, the unmanifested creation that we see. The water and ice is what we see, the manifested creation. We said, but water and ice, if you reheat it becomes water vapor. So जो दिखता है वो है नहीं और जो है वो दिखता नहीं. किसी ने कहा ब्रह्म सत जगत मिथ्या, किसी ने कहा ब्रह्म सत जगत भगवान, चूंकि पानी बर्फ भी जो बना वो भाप से ही बना है. So the manifested creation that we see is made up of that same element, which is the unmanifested. So everything is God. Nothing is happening here without His presence and existence. So we may differ in our views.
So landing of the rocket is a fake or is a real?
To those who think it's fake, it's fake. To those who think it's real, it's real. We cannot convince everyone, and it is said those who understand you don't need to explain. Those who don't understand you need to explain. No matter how many you may try to convince them, still have the same opinion. So there is no point in trying to make people convinced to your views. It's up to them.
Just present the fact and let them make a choice.
It's up to them.
And they can have the guru to guide
absolutely.
them to.
They have a free will, and nobody should impose on their free will of their choice of thinking. He says, a woman convinced against her will is of the same opinion still. So no matter how much you try to convince, if they're of the same opinion, will not be able to change their views, basically.
So we'll end by saying that अगर आप भगवत गीता से कुछ दो शब्द श्लोक या कुछ भी बोलना चाहेंगे, anything messaging point of view से.
I like one of the great saints said, what is Gita? He says if you repeat the term Gita 10 times, you'll get the essence of Gita. He says Gita, 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 Gita. Tyagi is what comes out of Gita. That's the essence of Gita. Become a renunciant. Renunciance in the sense, it's like you have a house at a place which has seismic zone. If you keep dwelling there, the earthquake will come and you perish. So removing the dwelling to a place where there's no seismic zone is what is renunciation. Renouncing the suffering and sorrow of this world and adopting a place of eternity and immortalness. Also, a book says how to get a pearl. It says go to the ocean, bank of the ocean, identify where the oyster is, wear a scuba gear, have the oxygen mask and dive deep, and open the oyster, get the pearl and come out. This is what the book talks about. Now reading that book 1,000 times, 1,000,000 times will not get me the pearl.
True.
I have to get to the practical aspect of doing it. So what Gita says, reading does not help. One has to get to doing what God is behesting us to do.
It was so thankful. Thank you so much. You gave us so much time and you handled all my question. I know sometimes it will be little immature or not very, but the way you handled it with such a calmness, that is the strength of a yogi. So I'm really fortunate to sit and talk in front of you. If I have done anything unknowingly, any disrespect, please pardon me, and I'm so thankful. Thank you.
May
Thank
you
you so
have
much.
my good wishes to your team and this channel of Golgappe. Here in India, people are very fond of Golgappe. I remember one distant relative once had gone to his home and his wife was away and he was saying she loves chaat like so crazily कि उनको अगर कागज पे भी लिखे देने चाट वो खा जाएंगे. तो चाट यहाँ बहुत पसंद है और हम लोग को डिफरेंट स्पाइसेस पसंद हैं. तो we should enjoy the world with different flavors of life and understand this is God's creation.
And my crewman is Raji. He is from Christian fraternity, and I'm very proud to sit with him. And he is from Kerala, our Spice King. So, and he has been so passionate about. He is telling me, talk to this yogi ji, talk this. This is the strength of inclusiveness which we aspire to have. And in Golgappe, the way we are saying is na or na chor na karenge bore. So you see a lot of channels always talking in a very hostile way. What we are saying is world is Brahmand is goal. And as Rig Veda said, that is Satya and Asatya, both were not there when the formation was happening. So we are saying there is no or and chore of any truth. You cannot say that our channel is a truth channel. Let it be to the seekers and to the Guru. So we need your blessing and thank you so much,
My
sir.
good wishes
Thank
to
you.
your team. May God bless you in your endeavors. Best wishes of all.
Thank you.
Thank you.